You walk into a room and immediately feel your energy drain. You listen to the idle chatter, the gossip, the small talk, and you feel a physical need to escape. You aren't depressed. You are starving for substance. You watch people laugh too loudly at jokes that aren't funny, nod too eagerly at opinions they don't even understand, and you feel your mind getting sanded down. You aren't antisocial. You are selectively social. Your selection bar is just higher. You were taught that being normal means being available, being agreeable, being constantly connected. But that teaching was not morality. It was training. Society calls you cold. They call you a loner. They call you hard to read. And the real reason they say it is simpler. Your independence insults their dependency. They don't hate your solitude. They hate what your solitude proves, that a person can live without the crowd's emotional drip feed. You didn't find this by accident. You found it because you've reached the edge of tolerance. It's time to stop apologizing for your nature and start using it. Isolation is not a punishment. It is the laboratory where great minds are built. The fortress where your intelligence stops leaking out to people who can't hold it. And there it is. The forbidden sentence society will never teach you, because if you accept it, you become difficult to control. Look around. Everything modern is designed to make you reachable. Notifications, group chats, mandatory culture, social media performance, endless commentary. Not because it makes you happy, because it makes you predictable. A connected person is an accessible person. An accessible person is a harvestable person. And here's the trap they set for the intelligent introvert. They label your withdrawal as damage. They diagnose your peace as avoidance. They shame your silence as arrogance. They do that because your silence removes their leverage. So let's answer the question you don't say out loud, the one you ask at 2 a.m. when you've cut people off and the room is quiet. Will you die alone and miserable? No. You will live free and powerful if you understand the difference between isolation and exile. Company is not the cure for life. For most people, company is the distraction from life. In this video, you're going to learn the power of solitude the way Schopenhauer meant it. Not as a vibe, not as a coping mechanism, but as a strategy. You're going to convert the lonely outcast story into the strategic hermit identity. You will learn strategic isolation, intellectual independence, self-mastery, mental fortitude, and the introvert advantages that people secretly resent you for having. And if you stay until the end, you'll get the final stage, the part nobody teaches. Solitude isn't just silence. Solitude is creation, and creation is dominance. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a "walk alone" in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. You keep hearing the same diagnosis from people who can't read you. You're too quiet. You need to get out more. You're overthinking. You're isolating. What happened to you? You notice how none of those statements are curiosity. They're correction. They aren't trying to understand you. They're trying to reinsert you into their system. You don't actually hate people. You hate what people do to your mind. You hate the subtle pressure to pretend. You hate the invisible taxation of shallow conversation. You hate leaving a fun night out, feeling dumber, heavier, noisier inside. And you've been trained to interpret that reaction as a personal flaw, like you're defective for not enjoying what everyone else tolerates. Here's the correction. You are not defective. You are sensitive to nonsense. That sensitivity is not weakness. It's discernment. You aren't lonely. You're bored. There is a difference. Most people socialize to escape themselves. You socialize to lose yourself. You walk into the room with a full mind, projects, ideas, questions, plans, and you leave with static. Your attention gets hijacked. Your standards get negotiated down. Your language becomes smaller so they can follow you. And you feel it. You feel the shrink. This is where Arthur Schopenhauer philosophy slices through the modern lie. The crowd doesn't just waste your time, it edits your identity. The average group interaction is not a neutral event, it's a power dynamic. Every group has an emotional gravity, and the group always pulls toward the simplest common denominator, which means if you keep swimming in those waters, you will eventually start breathing their air. You know what that feels like. You catch yourself laughing when you don't want to. You catch yourself agreeing to avoid explaining. You catch yourself giving energy to people who can't give it back. And you call it being nice. But in dark psychology terms, it's something else. It's compliance conditioning. You were taught that connection equals virtue. But connection without standards equals extraction. So the first move in weaponized detachment is not be rude. It's not be edgy. It's not hate people. It's a quieter, colder move. You stop allowing access to your mind as if access is free. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. Or you should be alone. And yes, this is where the fear creeps in. Because the moment you admit you prefer solitude, you feel the social curse, loner. You fear you'll become the lonely loser. You fear you'll miss out. You fear you'll get left behind. Good. That fear tells you where the cage is. Because FOMO isn't fear of missing out. Your FOMO is actually a fear of facing your own mind. And that's exactly why strategic isolation is power. It forces you to meet yourself without witnesses. No applause, no distraction, no borrowed identity. But there's a catch, one that will decide whether solitude becomes your throne or your grave. But isolation without purpose is just depression. Here is the difference. Solitude is not automatically noble. Solitude is a tool, and like every tool, it can build or it can rot. Depression says, I'm alone because I'm unwanted. Strategic isolation says, I'm alone because I'm unwilling to be used. One is rejection. The other is selection. You don't need more people. You need better outcomes. You don't need more conversation. You need more clarity. You don't need more social approval. You need more self-mastery. Schopenhauer didn't romanticize loneliness. He diagnosed society. He noticed something that modern culture tries to conceal with constant entertainment. Most people are not companions. They are noise, and noise is not harmless. Noise is erosion. You've experienced it. You spend hours hanging out, and somehow your goals feel farther away. You listen to everyone's opinions, and your own thinking gets fuzzy. You give your attention to their drama, and your inner world gets cluttered. That isn't socializing, that's mental contamination. This is why intellectual independence requires distance. A mind can't remain sharp while it's constantly being handled by other people's emotions. Let me say it in the language of power dynamics. Every relationship is an exchange of influence. If you don't control the terms, you will be controlled by the lowest effort person in your orbit. And the lowest effort person always wants the same thing from you: access. Access to your time, access to your empathy, access to your competence, access to your ability to fix what they refuse to fix. This is why the nice, capable, quiet person is everyone's favorite target. You're reliable, you're patient, you think before you speak, you tolerate more than you should, and they feel it. They can't dominate you directly, so they do something else. They occupy you. They keep you busy with their needs, so you never become your own project. That's not friendship. That's a soft hostage situation. The eagle flies alone, the sheep flock together. Which one are you? You don't become powerful by joining more circles. You become powerful by protecting your mind long enough for it to compound. Here's the part nobody tells you. For an intelligent person, Solitude is not emptiness. Solitude is bandwidth. It's your mind finally running at full speed without interruption. It's your nervous system finally settling without scanning for social threats. It's your values returning after being diluted all week. And yes, this is where people will pressure you hardest. Because when you withdraw, you stop being a mirror for their identity. When you stop attending, they have to face their own life. And they don't want to, so they call you selfish, they call you distant, they call you changed. You should hear that word, changed, as a compliment, because you are. Now I'm going to expose the deeper mechanism, why you feel exhausted even after a fun night out, and why your energy doesn't come back with sleep. This next concept explains why you feel drained even when nothing bad happened. You think you're tired because you did too much. No, you're tired because you were available to too many. You don't just spend time with people, you spend yourself. Every laugh that isn't real, every nod that's a lie, every polite response when you want silence, every moment you restrain your real thoughts so the room stays comfortable. That restraint is a psychological cost. Most people don't feel that cost because they don't have much inner depth to protect. But you do. You have a rich internal world. You have high standards. You have complex thoughts. And that means you feel the friction. So when you're around shallow people, you don't feel bored. You feel violated subtly, slowly, socially. You can't say it out loud because it sounds arrogant. So you swallow it and it turns into resentment. That resentment is not toxic. It's information. It's your psyche telling you this environment is beneath your mind. Schopenhauer didn't hate people. He just loved the truth more. And the truth is this: a large percentage of human interaction is not connection. It's regulation. People use conversation to regulate anxiety. They use gossip to feel superior. They use jokes to avoid sincerity. They use constant togetherness to avoid facing their own emptiness. So they want you in the room, not for you, but for what you provide. And what you provide, if you're not careful, is stabilizing energy. You're the calm one. You're the smart one. You're the one who listens. You're the one who solves. You become a resource. This is why dark psychology isn't just about spotting manipulators. It's about manipulation defense through boundary economics. Who gets access to you and at what cost? Here's your first tactical rule of strategic isolation. If someone consistently leaves you more confused, more drained, or more guilty than when you arrived, your mind is being used as a dumping ground. And yes, they'll deny it. They'll say you're too sensitive. They'll say you take things the wrong way. They'll say you hold grudges. Notice the pattern. They always frame your perception as the problem. That's a classic power move. It shifts accountability onto you, and if you accept it, you stay trapped. So you stop explaining. You stop defending. You stop negotiating your need for solitude like it's a flaw. You implement this silence. You withdraw that validation. You observe without engagement. You're not punishing them. You're saving yourself. But here's the danger, and it's real. There is a specific danger to solitude that you must avoid or it will destroy you. The danger is not that you'll be alone. The danger is that you'll become bitter. There's a difference between being solitary and being hostile. Strategic isolation is clean. Bitterness is dirty. Bitterness means you're still emotionally attached to the people you claim you've outgrown. Bitterness means they still live in your head, rent-free, while you pretend you're free. That is not weaponized detachment. That is delayed dependence. So here is the shift you must make if you want mental fortitude instead of mental corrosion. You don't isolate to prove a point. You isolate to protect a purpose. You don't walk alone so they'll miss you. You walk alone so you can finally hear yourself. You don't cut people off for revenge. You cut people off for cognitive preservation. Because the most expensive thing you own isn't time, it's attention. Your attention is the gate to your future. If the wrong people get it, They don't just waste your day, they weaken your trajectory. This is where introvert advantages become lethal in the best way. You can operate without audience. You can build without applause. You can improve in silence, while extroverts need reaction to stay motivated. And yes, this is where the herd will misunderstand you. They'll say, "You think you're better than us." What they mean is, "You're reminding us we could be better, and we hate you for it." So you must become emotionally detached enough to let them think whatever they need to think. Their misunderstanding becomes your camouflage. Your silence becomes your shield. But don't confuse alone with idle. Strategic isolation has rules. It has structure. It has outcomes. Otherwise, you're not walking alone. You're just hiding. So now we pivot into the actual weaponization, the system you use to turn solitude into power. Schopenhauer predicted the modern social media trap 200 years ago, and once you see it, you will never unsee it. You think social media is connection. It's not. It's surveillance, voluntary surveillance. It trains you to perform your life instead of live it. It trains you to seek microdoses of validation instead of long-term self-respect. It trains you to measure your worth by visibility. And visibility is a leash, because the moment you need to be seen, you can be controlled by whoever controls the spotlight. Trends, outrage, likes, community. All of it is a system of emotional dependency. Arthur Schopenhauer philosophy points to a brutal truth. Most people don't want freedom. They want comfort. They don't want solitude. They want distraction. So the system sells distraction as virtue. Be social. Be open. Share more. Don't be a stranger. Translation, be accessible. Because accessible people are easier to manipulate. Accessible people are easier to guilt. Accessible people are easier to recruit into other people's agendas. But you're not built for that. Your mind is built for deep work. Your nervous system is built for depth, not noise. Your best ideas don't arrive in crowds. They arrive in silence. So when you keep forcing yourself into constant social exposure, you're not being brave. You're betraying your design. This is where your resentment becomes useful. Stop for a moment and calculate the energy you waste on being reachable. How many conversations were you trapped in because you didn't want to seem rude? How many group chats have you been emotionally drafted into? How many weekends did you donate to vibes when your future needed structure? And how many times did you leave those interactions and feel the same thought, "I should have stayed home"? That thought is not laziness, it's accuracy. So here's the move. You turn your home into a fortress. Not a prison, a fortress. You choose strategic isolation as an upgrade, not a retreat. And now we name it, we give it a form, we make it real. Monk mode isn't a meme. Monk mode is modern warfare for the mind. But to do it correctly, you must understand the psychological law that makes solitude either empowering or unbearable. Once you accept this truth about your friends, you will never feel guilty again. Guilt is the chain they use on intelligent, conscientious people, because you can be reasoned with, you can be shamed, you can be appealed to. And manipulators, conscious or unconscious, love that about you. They don't have to force you. They just have to imply you're bad for choosing yourself. They just have to say, "You've been distant. You never come around. We miss you. You're acting different. You think you're too good now." And the old you, trained to be fair, trained to be kind, feels the hook. You start explaining. You start justifying. You start overextending to prove you still belong. That's the moment your power leaks. Here is the tactical advantage your emotionally reactive competitors will never have. You can feel guilt and still not comply. That is self-mastery. You can let guilt rise like a wave, watch it, and let it pass without obeying it. You can acknowledge their disappointment without repairing it. You can hear their accusations without defending yourself. You can be misunderstood and still be correct. And when you do that, something terrifying happens to people who relied on your compliance. They lose access. Your absence becomes a mirror, and they don't like what it shows, so they escalate. They try to bait you into argument. They try to provoke you into explanation. They try to make you prove your loyalty. This is where weaponized detachment becomes visible. You do not argue your boundaries. You enforce them. You don't say, "I'm sorry, I just need time alone." You say, "I'm not available." You don't defend your solitude. You live it. You aren't lonely. You're bored. There is a difference. And now we answer the forbidden question with steel, not comfort. Will you die alone and miserable? No, you will die with integrity if you live with it first. And integrity requires separation from people who constantly bargain down your standards. Most people fear being alone because they confuse solitude with abandonment. But solitude is not abandonment when you choose it. Solitude is sovereignty. Now here's where this becomes dangerous in a good way. The greatest minds in history all shared this one habit, and it's the habit society will fight you for. Because if you adopt it, you stop being manageable. The habit is simple. They protected long, uninterrupted stretches of solitude, not as self-care, as strategy, because power doesn't come from being liked. Power comes from having something other people don't have: skill, knowledge, leverage, composure, options. And all of those are built in quiet. The crowd can't build in quiet. The crowd needs stimulation. The crowd needs reaction. The crowd needs an audience. You don't. That is your introvert advantage. So here is the framework, your strategic isolation blueprint. You don't need motivation, you need structure. Rule 1, you schedule solitude like a meeting with your future self. Non-negotiable, no apologies, no over-explaining. You don't find time, you take it. Rule 2, you create a noise budget. Every week you decide how much social exposure you can afford without cognitive debt. You stop spending your best hours on other people's worst habits. Rule 3, you adopt monk mode with a target, not "I'll disappear," but "I will build X," a portfolio, a body, a business plan, a skill, a book, a certification, a strategy. Solitude without creation is decay. Solitude with creation is dominance. Rule 4, you replace social validation with internal metrics. Did you train? Did you learn? Did you ship work? Did you keep your promises to yourself? That is self-mastery. That is mental fortitude. Rule 5, you become strategically unavailable. You don't respond instantly. You don't pick up every call. You don't attend every event. You don't let people schedule your life with their impulses. You aren't cruel. You're precise. And this is where power dynamics flip. At first, they'll punish you with labels. They'll call you boring. They'll call you lonely. They'll call you weird. Then something shifts. They start respecting what they can't easily access, because scarcity creates value. And you are becoming scarce. Strategic isolation creates mystique. Silence creates gravity. Distance creates status. Not because you're playing games, because you've stopped being cheap. Now there's one arena where your solitude will be tested hardest: family. How do you handle family? Schopenhauer has a brutal answer for that. Family is the oldest social contract, and because it's old, it comes with ancient expectations. Be available, be loyal, be agreeable. Don't change too much, don't outgrow the role we assigned you. But weaponized detachment doesn't care where the pressure comes from. It measures one thing: cost. Does this relationship strengthen your mind or drain it? Does it respect your boundaries or treat them as betrayal? Does it support your growth or punish you for it? Family can be love. Family can also be a cage made of guilt and nostalgia. So you stop confusing blood with access. You can love people and still choose distance. You can respect someone's place in your history and still deny them power over your future. This is emotional intelligence at the level of strategy. You separate compassion from compliance. You stop trying to be understood by people who benefit from misunderstanding you. And you stop trying to win approval from people who fear your independence. Most people will never say it out loud, but they feel threatened when you become self-contained. Because a self-contained person cannot be bribed with attention, cannot be controlled with gossip, cannot be moved by public opinion. That is intellectual independence. And once you have it, you can walk into any room without needing anything from it, which means the room can't own you. This is where your solitude becomes a weapon without you lifting a finger. You become untouchable, not because you fight everyone. You become untouchable because there is nothing to grab. And now we arrive at the final transformation. The lonely outcast becomes the solitary king. But you must cross one last threshold, the internal noise, because even after you leave them, they try to follow you inside. The final stage of solitude isn't silence, it's creation. But first, you must learn to silence the noise inside. You cut people off, you decline invitations, you go quiet, and for a moment it feels clean. Then the inner crowd arrives, their voices, their judgments, their imagined reactions, the conversations you replay, the arguments you didn't have, the guilt scripts, the maybe I'm the problem loop. This is the last leash, and it's why many people fail at solitude. They leave society physically, but they keep society psychologically. So the true strategic hermit move is this. You stop debating with ghosts. You stop rehearsing explanations for people who won't accept them anyway. You stop mentally performing your life for an audience you no longer respect. You return your mind to yourself. This is cognitive preservation. This is mental fortitude. This is self-mastery. And it's also the ultimate manipulation defense, because manipulation requires access. If no one can reach your emotions on command, they can't steer you. Here is the practice. It's simple. It's brutal. It works. When you feel the urge to check your phone, ask, what am I avoiding? When you feel the urge to message someone, ask, am I seeking connection or permission? When you feel the urge to attend, ask, am I choosing growth or choosing comfort? Most people can't handle these questions. You can. That's why you're here. You aren't lonely, you're bored. There is a difference. And when you finally stay in your own company without flinching, something awakens. You start hearing your real thoughts again. Not the thoughts you borrowed, not the thoughts you edited for approval. Your thoughts. That is the beginning of power. Because once you can be alone without pain, you can't be threatened with abandonment. Once you can be alone without distraction, you can't be bribed with entertainment. Once you can be alone without fear, you can't be controlled by social pressure. You become a sovereign mind. Now we close this with a direct initiation. Something you can do immediately to prove to yourself that you're not a lonely outcast. You're a strategic hermit. So here's what you do. This weekend, spend it completely alone. No parties, no obligatory lunches, no just stopping by, minimal social media, minimal noise. And you create something. A plan, a draft, a workout cycle, a skill map, a piece of writing, a budget, a portfolio piece, a system. Not because you need to impress anyone, because you need evidence. Evidence that your solitude produces power. And when the guilt rises, you don't obey it. When the boredom hits, you don't escape it. When the silence gets loud, you don't run from it. You sit there, calm, still, strategic, until your mind becomes yours again. That is the power of solitude. That is intellectual independence. That is strategic isolation. That is self-mastery. That is mental fortitude. And that is why you will not die alone and miserable. You will live alone sometimes, and it will be luxury. You will walk alone often, and it will be leverage. You will build alone repeatedly, and it will be the reason you never have to beg for belonging again. So comment, walk alone, if you're done apologizing for your nature, and subscribe if you're ready to join the tribe of individuals who stop performing, stop pleading, and start building internal empires. This isn't motivation. This is training. This is strategy. This is the philosophy of isolation made practical. And whatever you do, don't stop now. The on-screen video matters more than you think, because once you are alone, you must learn to silence the noise inside. I'll see you there. See what others miss, know what others fear, become who others can't.